Calico Plains, autumn of 1892. The market square was alive with dust, chatter, and the smell of fresh bread. But in the center, a woman stood bound. Her reputation burned before the eyes of everyone she had ever trusted. They called her a liar. They called her a thief. And only one man knew the truth. But speaking it would cost him everything he had ever earned. In the fading light, the townsfolk of Calico Plains pressed in, a wall of suspicion and whispered gossip. Madeline Vale, 27, stood at the center. Her dark hair fell in loose tangles, her dress torn from travel, her eyes steady though the dirt of a week clung to her skin. Around her neck, a crude sign: fraud, liar, infant thief. The townspeople pointed fingers. One elderly woman muttered prayers. Another threw a scrap of bread at Madeline's feet. Stories of missing heirs, vanished families, and a newborn abandoned in a cabin had spread faster than wildfire. The truth had no foothold here. Rumor was the law. On the edge of the crowd, a tall man leaned against a post, boots caked in mud. Elias Thorne, 34, rancher of the Thorn Ridge, watched silently. He had seen Madeline 6 weeks ago, drenched in a thunderstorm, clutching a letter from the vanished Whitfield family, begging him to believe in her. The document now lay hidden at his ranch, proof of her innocence and evidence of a secret that could destroy him. Madeline did not scream. She did not beg. She simply faced forward, calm but pale. Her silence spoke louder than words, and the townsfolk mistook it for guilt. That night, rain drummed softly on the tin roof of Thornridge Ranch. Elias had just finished his supper when a soft knock echoed. Madeline, soaked to the bone, stepped into the lamplight, clutching the Whitfield letter and their infant daughter. "They trusted me with her," she whispered. "They said you would know the truth." Elias took the damp letter inside, drying it carefully. Each word confirmed her story. The Whitfields had fled after a failed land scheme, leaving Madeline to protect their child. In the margins, a name: Elias Thornridge. The revelation stunned him. He was an illegitimate son of the Whitfield's patriarch, a truth buried beneath years of hard labor and self-made respect. He wanted to help, but fear held him hostage. The town could strip him of everything: land, reputation, dignity. So he remained silent, letting the lie grow. Madeline left the child with him, and he tucked the letter away, hiding the truth behind his own cowardice. Weeks later, the town hall swelled with whispers and tension. News had spread that Elias intended to speak in Madeline's defense. He held the dried, preserved letter like scripture. "I have proof," he said, voice even. "This letter confirms the Whitfields entrusted their child to Miss Vale. She is innocent." Gasps erupted. Murmurs turned to jeers. "A bastard son protecting a liar," one man shouted. "It's all a scheme for land and fortune." Elias remained steady. Revealing the truth meant risking his entire life. The town's justice system, rigid and fearful, wavered but didn't sway. Silence and suspicion still dominated. And Madeline's eyes, steady and unwavering, reminded him of the cost of cowardice. Determined, Elias planned. Under cover of night, he approached the jail, shadows clinging to his black coat and bandana. Only essentials: rope, knife, courage weighed down with guilt. Inside, Madeline sat on the cold stone floor, shackled and bruised. Guards patrolled. Elias slipped in through a maintenance hatch. Violence erupted, raw and untrained. Fists, clubs, the smell of sweat and iron. He fought like a man protecting not just another, but truth itself. Finally, after a brutal struggle, he reached her. They were both thrown into a solitary cell, bruised and battered. Yet the silence between them was no longer empty. It was understanding. A fragile bond forged in fire. 2 days until the federal judge arrived. Madeline and Elias remained confined, the child under the town's temporary care. Elias wrote a confession. He had withheld evidence to protect his secret. The letter was sealed with his cattle brand, a mark of authority and sacrifice. Madeline finally allowed herself to cry, not for herself, but for the child. Elias sat beside her, silently holding her hand. Words were unnecessary. Presence was enough. The weight of injustice pressed on them, but they endured. Dawn brought the unexpected: a creaking carriage and the Whitfields themselves. Henry Whitfield, Lillian Whitfield, and their lawyer stepped into the square, gaunt from weeks on the run. Henry's voice shook as he confessed. They had fled. leaving Madeline to protect their child. Abandoning her to the town's wrath, Lillian embraced Madeline, begging forgiveness. Silence fell. Shock, awe, and relief rippled through the crowd. Charges were dropped. The judge validated Elias's letter. Justice, delayed by fear and cowardice, finally arrived. A year later, the ranch had transformed. Blackstone Ranch became a homestead and community center. Madeline ran a nursery and medical clinic. Elias managed the land and tended to children's laughter. The child toddled across the porch, calling Madeline Ma and Elias Pa. They never married, but the town no longer questioned their bond. A framed copy of the Whitfield letter hung above the clinic desk, a silent reminder that truth often required courage, more than proof. Elias planted a white elm in the town square, at the site where Madeline had once stood condemned. A plaque read, "The truth stood here once and we nearly let it die." People left flowers, touched the bark, and walked away quietly, knowing the story would live. Madeline once faced a town ready to destroy her. Elias once let fear silence him. But together, in presence, courage, and truth, they built a life worth respecting. Truth didn't need to be shouted. Love didn't start with vows. It began when someone stayed. If this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe to Wild West Heartbeats, where we tell tales of courage, love, and the price of truth. Comment below. What would you have done if you were Elias?